What's going on, guys, and welcome back. We're getting really close to set championships now. We've had a handful more tournaments happen, and today I got 4 deck lists of tournaments where there was at least 40 players, and these are all first place finishing lists. One, it did look like they split top 4, but we took the best record, the one that was in first place after Swiss, to talk about it. So kind of just a little insight as to what decks are winning. Tonight I will have the spreadsheet that is linked down below brought back current. I'm a few weeks behind with all the holiday stuff. It's been very hectic. I think a lot of people can relate to that, but tonight, rest assured, I will have that updated, as well as a January tab started, which is going to be big because set championships are coming up, so it's going to be the most informative tab we have. Anyway, moving forward, also we'll do like our top 10 decks with at least top 5 deck list breakdowns this end of the week, early next week or so before set championships start. So first and foremost, this is obviously a popsicle deck. It's Ruby, Sapphire. I think that this is probably one of the top 2 decks of the format. I know there's been a lot of aggro, and I think that while aggro can answer this deck really well, I've been semi-critical of aggro being a true tier 1 deck. I think they've been proving me wrong so far this format. And doing really well overall. We've had like Amethyst Emerald, Dwarf Mine, and Purple Steel, like 3 very prominent aggro decks being all over the place, as well as Amber Amethyst starting to make a comeback, it almost looks like. So see where they rank in my overall list. But at the end of the day, I like the consistent, the across the board, the power. I don't have to be on the play. Just this deck wins a lot. That's why it's been so good for the last like 3-4 sets now. So we see they're playing on 2, which is usually the earliest characters that Popsicle will play. The 4 Tipos is pretty standard, and 1 Queen of Hearts. It's just another answer for aggro. Obviously, it's a rush character, 2/2. At 1, is it really worth it? I mean, it's just another answer. It's not like this is the only answer for aggro, right? You're playing the 1 Queen of Hearts, the 4 Brawls, the Pirate's Life, and if you start ramping and getting into your bigger characters, that too plays a role into it. You're also playing the Sisu Daring Visitor on 3, so you're not truly playing one. You're playing 1 queen, but you're playing more than one answer for the aggro, which brings us into those 3 drops of the Sisu Daring Visitor. It kind of ties in with queen, where it's a similar function. It answers aggro, but it also covers other things like this. In the mirror match, we'll get rid of a Hiram. You also, like I mentioned, the Brawl, the Pirate's Life, just you have quite a few cards that actually tie in together and do a very similar role. So when you see like these random 1 and 2 ofs, that's a lot of what goes into like deck building and tying the knots together is you see the 1 Queen of Hearts, the 2 Sisu, the 1 Pirate's Life, and the 4 Brawl. So you're actually playing 8 early, well, Pirate's Life ain't that early. So you're playing 7 early answers for aggro in the form of 3 different cards, because then you get a little bit of variance and variety. Like Brawl can also hit those Ursulas, can hit those Diablos, Ariels, things like that. And like I said, Sisu can hit your Hirams and other characters, whereas Queen can just come down and deal 2 damage right off the get-go. So they have similar functions in a lot of cases, but also a little bit of variance, and that's why sometimes when you see a list, you're like, there's too many 1 ofs, too many 2 ofs. Sometimes that's what it is. Try to connect the dots on the 1 and 2 ofs and see which ones pair up and do similar functions, and it might make it all make a little bit more sense. On 4, that's where we start to go for consistency. We have the 3 Grammatalas and then the 1 Hiram. Raya, this card pairs up with the Half Shark really well, being able to ready it. Half Shark, this is like the only deck I like Half Shark in because of the ramp and getting there so early and consistently. Being able to one-shot many locations is very strong, especially a Dwarf Mine. If you can ramp and get this down, you're going to have a better time against that deck. It's evasive. It's a 7/5. You play quite a few actions here, so you can start to get that lore that way. And in addition, getting your actions back through its other ability. Half Shark, this deck, I absolutely do love Half Shark in, but we still like the hero to all of Maui as well. So we're playing him in there at 3. We see 4/4 on the Tamatoa and Big Sisu. For a while, people were starting to cut Tamatoa back, and I think it was because of Go-Go Tamagon. I get the potential risky run at that point, but if you realize you're playing against an Emerald deck, just try to keep that in your mind. If they have a Go-Go when they're at 13, 14 lore, like how much damage can they put onto your Tamatoa? Just think that through a little bit. Don't cut a really good card in fear of that, because at the end of the day, it's inkable. You can always ink it as well. So I think Tamatoa at 4 should have never been seeing play at less. Maybe 3 you could justify, but it's being played at 2, 1, and even cut out of some lists, and that I just completely disagree with. Sisu, huge blowout. You don't have as many shift lines, but you have the ramp. At 4, I mean, if you have the room and you're not like capped on uninkables, it's a great card. Like I said, we're only playing the 2 little ones for the shift line, but again, you're ramping, so that's not a huge issue. As far as total uninkables, talking too fast. Now we got what? Sisu 6, 3 more for how far? 9, 12, 11 after B prep. 14 after the ice block, 15. Yeah, 15 is really low for this deck, actually. So 4 big Sisus makes a ton of sense. We've seen this deck run upwards of like 18 to 22 at times. So like 15 is right in that golden range I like. Maleficent Dragon, another one. I talking to my friend Kyle, and he's like, oh, I want to put that in Ruby Amethyst. I want to put it in Ruby Amethyst. I was like, no, dude, like, it's good if, like, in format 2, like set 2 format. It's just hard. It's not hard to get to 9 ink, and I guess if you have nothing better, I just think Ruby Amethyst is a better toolbox of earlier play cards that Maleficent Dragon isn't needed needed at this point. But this deck, once again, you can get to 9 ink pretty consistently by turn 6. So now all of a sudden you're dropping Maleficents on 6, not on 9. So that's a huge difference, by the way. Literally 33% faster. Some other 2-drop cards both double up as consistency, and then you also get the potential for the extra ramp with the Sail the Azurite Sea. And I do wonder if that's why we're seeing the uninkable count drop in these decks a little bit, because Sail to the Azurite Sea doesn't actually perform the ink. It allows you, kind of like Bell, to perform an additional ink. So it still must be an inkable card. And then we have the Visions of the Future. This card is just, look at 5, add 1. It's toss 2, inkable. That's broken. 4 Brawls. How far I'll go. Love this card for ramping. Not only do you know it goes to your inkwell, you get a card to your hand. It's consistency. It is a song. This is one of Sapphire's best cards, honestly, in my opinion. Then you have a little bit of removal with the Let It Go. We kind of talked about Pirate's Life already. Testing a deck yesterday at Locals with Dave. He hit me with, was it 3 or 4 Pirate's Lives the first time around? And I got hit by it so many times, or game 2, and I'm like, about to win the game. I'm at 17. I'm like, Dave, you realize I've quested for 23 lore already this game, right? And it's a great card. Like, a 4 lore swing is nothing to joke at, especially with the format being so fast. If this deck falls behind like 15-0, and then all of a sudden you start hitting your Mauis, your big game, your top end, and then you drop Pirate's Life on them too, and all of a sudden now it's 13-2. Like, that is a whole new game. 13-2 versus 15-0 is a completely different game for aggro against this deck. Like, you're a pretty good chance you lose that game, because once this deck gets set up, all of a sudden they're starting to pop for like 5, 6, 8 lore per turn. Like, this deck, once they're set up and rolling, they can quest out in 3 turns easy. 2B preps, just more removal. You got big Sisu at 4, so it makes sense. Ice block, obviously making your Sisus, your Brawls, a little bit more impactful. We do see there's no Medusas or Tremaines at all in here. Tremaine's been cut for quite a while. Medusa, though, is a little bit surprising to not see in there, even as like a 1 or a 2 of. Popsicle, consistency, Vitalosphere is an item for your Hiram, and it's also utility. And then obviously your Lucky Dime is another card to potentially close out a game. What's another list that's been doing well? So we have Amethyst Emerald here, and this deck can be very tempo-oriented, kind of. It's a very aggressive to can pivot into a mid-game type deck. This one definitely seems to be more on the quicker end, because we see things like the White Roses in there, which typically isn't played in the more tempoed version. It's played, obviously, in the aggressive version, because it's just another card that guarantees you lore right off the get-go. On 1-drop spots, we are playing 14 1-drops. So again, the more aggressive, this is a more aggressive version than you can play. You don't have to play this aggressive. I think both ways are actually really good right now, this format. If you look me up on Dreamborn, I post like random deck ideas, and for set championships, I built my son a Amethyst Emerald evasive aggro deck, because, well, I think if he can start getting these characters down, just from going to locals the last few times when I was playing decks, I was playing a purple steel location, and a couple of my matchups, I just pivoted my line and went for Tinkerbell on 3, Genie on 4, and just like evasives that quest for 2, and my like the opponent just couldn't do anything against it. Like he couldn't answer them, he couldn't stop them, because then like I was still playing crab and stuff and had removal, so it's like I just had to deal with his Elsas. Bell could move damage, but I wasn't putting anything on board for him to be able to actually challenge into. So I think there's something to be said there for an evasive deck. If people aren't expecting it, evasive aggro deck can absolutely win a set championship. I'm not saying a 7-year-old is going to win a set championship, but I think he's got a pretty good shot to get his card. He took second the one locals we went to, so we'll see how he does. But again, if you look me up on Dreamborn, that link is actually, or that deck is on there, and it's not optimized. It's that list is the exact list he's going to be running, because I was putting it together for him, and I'm playing Ruby Amethyst, so some of my other cards are in my deck, not his. But anyway, enough rambling about stuff that doesn't matter here. We got Clarabelle. We got the Clarabelle shift line. We got the big one in there. The little one also doubles up as item removal, which can come up periodically, so don't sleep on item removal. It costs 1, you pay 2 for the item removal, so on turn 3 you can use her that way. It's kind of nice. Inkable as well. Chernobog and Diablo in there as draw cards, and obviously your Merfolk as your aggressive. So if you're going against like more control decks, you're going to try and swing for like Merfolk, Banzai on 1, 2, then Kit on 3, or not, sorry, that would be an aggressive 1, not control. On 3, come back with like multiple characters. Ideally would probably be your best line. Otherwise you do have like that roses on 3, and then obviously 4 your genies, your goats, your rabbits. There's really not a bad 4 drop in the deck. In addition, if you're going against other aggressive decks, that's what we were going with that. On 1, you're probably going for like your Clarabelle or your followers. On 2, Banzai is still good, because don't sleep on that 3 attack. Otherwise on 3, your foxes, your kits, that's where you start to get really good answers for your opponent. So on 2, like I said, we see the bonsais. Uninkable count, we got the 2, because then the 4 merfolks is what, 6, 4 genies is 10, 2 rabbits is 12. Like a deck like this, 11 to 14 is where I try to stay typically. So 12, he's right in that happy zone that I would be thrilled with. Go Tamago, I think that this card, a lot of time I played at 3, 4 is absolutely fine. You're going to see it more often. It's a great card. It's great for closing out games. It gives you more of a late game. It gives you that extra little push, in addition to White Roses and Goat. Now all of a sudden you have 3 cards that can generate you guaranteed lore right away. One really fun play to do is like Goat on 4. On 5, you crash your Goat into something. If it will survive it, your Goat dies, you get the lore, you put 4 damage on, and then you slap a Go Tamago down, and you get the 4 lore for the 4 damage on their character that your Goat just crashed into. So that is something to really keep in mind. Go Tamago really helping close out those games. The 2 snake, you're not necessarily going for it on 2. Playing the 2 assuming here, because it's more or less for that more mid game where you're going to be bouncing your rabbits, your goats, your Kit Cloud kickers, potentially Ursula in the Steel Song matchup, crabs, things like that. You're not trying to play it on 2 to bounce those 1-drops or anything early. You're trying to play it more in that like turn 4 or 5 range, where you can play like your goat, your rabbit, your kit, something like that, and then the next turn you play your snake, you bounce that character, and then you get to replay it again, and you just get that extra value, making sure you quest, challenge, sing, stuff like that before you go ahead and bounce it. Obviously Ursula in there. Steel Song, that matchup is definitely winnable. I think it's far better this format than it used to be. I still tilt it in favor of Steel Song, but if you know both decks decent enough, and you know your deck really good, I guess, I think it's absolutely very winnable. A lot of the time the Steel Song players, I think, assume they have the upper hand, and I think that if you're comfortable with the matchup, you absolutely can win it pretty frequently even. Kit, Fox, these are just some of your best 3 drops. Crab, 3 to 4. I would play at least 3. Is 4 a bit much? If you're trying to lean that aggressive version, I would argue yes, but at the same time, I'm not gonna lose sleep over 4 crabs. Really good card. Helps you with removal because you just don't have it in this deck. Like I said, the roses, the go-go's, and the goats were just that guaranteed lore. Your turn, your opponent can't respond to it. Really good answers. The 4-4-2 lineup on our 4 drops, I've said it before, that's just kind of like the bread and butter of Amethyst decks right now, as well as the 2 Bell and 4 Elsa. So like that bottom row of Amethyst cards, you can pretty much peg that into any Amethyst deck, and that's pretty standard right there. And then the 4 Clarabelles. I do think 4 is a lot. I think 4 is a bit much. But if you got the space, you got the bells, and you don't necessarily need other utility, why not go for it? It's a great late game card, great mid game card, gets you back in, great at generating advantage, and it's also inkable. So there's really not a downside to playing it. I just think that 4 is a little bit much. Not sure what I just did there, but anyway. Ruby Amethyst time. So Ruby Amethyst also took down an event. The Amethyst Emerald was the top 4 split first after Swiss. I think they won 4, tied 2 rounds. So we have Ruby Amethyst now moving on in to our final 2. We got 4 of these total. And on 1, we see 3 Chernobog, 3 Broom, and 2 Moanas. The Moana with the 3 strength, obviously, for your Flynn rider. If your opponent tries to challenge it, obviously they're going to probably lose a character because 3 strength is nothing to lose sleep over. She can't challenge if you don't have the captain or the pirate character and play captain or pirate, one of the two. I should have did the other image where I can actually click on it and look a little bit better. But she's a 3-cost character. She's going to quest get you that lore. If your opponent tries to get rid of her, they're going to have a problem that way. Again, it's another 3 strength character to pair up with your Flynn as well, so it just gives you a little bit of utility that way. I still like Diablo over Broom. I truly do. I'm playing it. At the end of the day, people say, well, against aggro, Broom does a little bit more. Emphasis on a little bit. There's not a single time versus aggro where I'm like, oh, come on, Broom, 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 Broom. Never once have I ever thought that. Not once. Whereas like Diablo, obviously if you draw a Diablo, you're like, okay, that sucks. But if you draw a Broom, you say the same thing. So at the end of the day, you can crash your Diablo into something and draw a card. You can't crash your Broom into something and draw a card. Neither one really functions in a good essence to want to do that. Broom you can go ahead and draw on the same turn, so I will give you that. Diablo, though, also is another way to plus after like B prep, and it pairs up with Crab to get insane trade value with your opponent. You play a Crab, you boost your Diablo, you crash into something, you draw a card. I just really like Diablo a lot more than the Broom, and then playing Chernobog followers as well. That's just kind of standard and unanimous, I think, in the Ruby Amethyst community. Another thing that's pretty standard in the Ruby Amethyst community is the 2-drop spot being for Flynn and Madam Mim. This deck can answer aggro decks pretty quick between Flynn aggro, between like you have Chernobog, you have, well, we already kind of mentioned about Moana's restriction, but you have Fox that has Rush, you have Genie, or not Genie, Elsa. Wow, we just called Elsa or Genie Elsa, or Elsa Genie. Can't even talk right now. You have Elsa, you got Maui. If you really wanted, you could play Super Goof. Like, you have so many Rush characters in this deck that are inkable and actually pretty good value overall. I think you have a lot of ways to answer aggressive decks, so I don't think that there's any need to play like the Queen of Hearts on 2. So into 3, you got the Fox, 2 Crabs, 2 to 3. I'd say 2 to 3 if you're playing the deck. 4 Sisus for that bread and butter. You hit Flynn on 2, you hit Sisu on 3. Mirror match especially, this card applies a lot of pressure because in the mirror match, the name of the game is generate advantage. So 4 defense with usually like 5 to 7 strength in the mirror match is nothing to sneeze at, especially when it quests for 2. 4 Genies, 4 Goats, and 2 Rabbits. It's like we just talked about that. And then 2 Bells and 4 Elsas. Like I said, the bread and butter of Amethyst decks right now. Same reasons as the last deck that we talked about. Almost every Amethyst deck, you're going to see 4, 4, 2, 2, 4 for the ratios on those cards. 2 Mauis, you have Belle, you have Elsa, kind of performing that deal with my opponent's board type role. So Maui's one of those cards that's kind of coming down a little bit in playing. 2 to 4. I wouldn't play less than 2. Personally, I'm 3. And if you still want to play 4, again, it's a great card. I have absolutely nothing wrong with that. Madame Tremaine. Madame Tremaine and Lady Medusa is apparently what we're going with in today's video for these 2 cards. Lady Tremaine and Madame Medusa 2-2. I really like the 2-2 split. I think that a lot of the time, especially if you get them down into just that single card playability, Tremaine is so much better, and in addition to that, it takes out any threat, not just the 3 strength or lower threats like the Medusa does, But like I said, you got to get them into a position where you can do that, because if they come back with 2 characters, guess what? They're going to choose which character they want to get rid of, whereas the Medusa, you get to choose. So they both have great utility and serve a very similar but vastly different function sometimes. Elsa and Sisu in our big spots. I like both cards a lot right now. You're playing 9 uninkable cards that cost 6 or higher. That's one thing that's just kind of scary to me. I mean, I play 8, so it's like 8 to 9. What's the real difference? Not a whole lot. Both have shift lines. You have Elsa's shift line, you have Sisu's shift line. So I mean, both are there for that. I like both cards. If you want to play either one, that's fine by me. If you want to play both of them, again, I don't think I'll do it, but at the same time, I had been debating a second Sisu. So what's the difference if you put 2 Sisu in or a 1-1 split? Yeah, I think overall though it's pretty decent. We got, like I said, the 9 there. Then you got the 4 genies, 2 rabbits for another 6, brings you to 15 unequables total. It's on that higher end that I like to be at, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it if you're at 15 uninkables. And then lastly, the 3 brawls, force friends, and the 3 B preps. My local area is very aggressive / brawl hits a lot, so I'm personally on 4 brawls. But this is one of the great things about Ruby Amethyst. You can tailor the deck to where you're playing to your local meta and kind of build it for that, because the toolbox is so great and the consistency is there. And then we had another Ruby Sapphire again in the last, I think since January, there'd be a lot of decks then. Since December 29th, I took the 4 decks from the tournaments of at least 40 players. These are the first place ones. That's why there's 4. I didn't cherry pick them. I just kept it straight across the board. I just didn't want to do 2 Ruby Sapphires in a row, so I put one at the front, one at the back. Anyway, on 2 we see 4 Tipo, and that's it. So there's no queen in this one. On 3, we do have 3 Sisus instead of the 2 from the other one. But if you look down closer towards the bottom, we have 3 Pirates Life. There is 3 brawls, not 4. So once again, we have kind of 9 of those anti-aggro type answers. Whereas the other one, what did we have? We had the 1, the 2, 3, 4. So we had 8. You actually have 9 here, so you have more answers for those aggressive style decks. It's just in a slightly different form of it. We do have the additional consistency card in the Grammatala and no Raya in this list, which again, Raya is kind of like a personal tech choice to re-ready a character, quest for 2, things like that. And Grammatala obviously is a consistency card. So this is another deck that has some choices to be made because you have quite a big toolbox. And once again, no Tremaine, no Medusas. So is that the trend going forward? Is that something to keep in mind? Like, because if this is a trend going forward, it's not just when you build a deck, right? If you realize you're playing against this deck, that's something to keep in mind. Part of that too could be from with the format being so fast and aggressive, we're not seeing a lot of shift lines. No shift line, and I don't want to say no. Less shift lines means like less Robin Hood, which is something that Medusa just answers fantastically. Plus, you still have, your popsicle, your ice block plus your Sisu, ice block plus brawl, Maleficent, let it go. Still so many ways to answer like that Robin Hood. Both of your Maui's one-shot Robin Hood. So, I mean, it's not like this deck can't answer those type of threats without the Medusa. For Hiram, pretty standard. Only a 1-4 on the Maui ratios. What was the other one? 3-2 or 2? Yeah, 3-2. I don't know if I like just the one hero of all. And I think 4 half sharks a lot. Like, I could see 3, but I can't see myself playing less than 3 Maui hero to alls. That just, I don't know if I like that. I really don't know if I do, but hey, it worked out for them pretty well, so I'm not going to sit here and judge them too harshly. 4 Sisus, once again, pretty standard. Like I said, 3 Tamatoas. The other one had 4. Like I said, I don't think you should play less than 3 personally. We've seen 3 and 4 being effective. This one is playing 4 Maleficents instead of the 3, so you got those 11 top-end cards still. This one does tech in the Hideaway as just a little bit of removal. It's inkable. Not going to lose sleep over that either. What would I do? I don't know. That one Maui just kind of irks me. I mean, kudos to them, it worked, but I can't see myself just playing one Maui. 4 Sail the Azurite Sea, 3 Visions of the Future, 3 Brawls, 3 How Far All Goes, and 1 Let It Go, rounding out some of our action and item, or no, just action, sorry. Azurite Sea is not an item. Too much cards, too much talking, not enough water, not enough eating, not enough sleep. But anyway, we talked about the Pirate's Life. 3 B preps. Again, you're going to see, at least 1 B prep. We've seen 1 B prep in quite a few Ruby Sapphire lists. That's because you're playing so much other removal already, too. Your Brawls, your Sisus, your Mauis aren't removal, but they're damage-oriented. And your Maui Half Shark can actually get your B prep back. So if you only want to play 2 B preps, and especially if you're maxing out on your Half Shark, that is also something to consider that you can do. 3 Ice Blocks, 4 Popsicles. The Shield of Virtue as another utility card paired up with the Vitalisphere that we already mentioned is a nice little utility card. And on inkable counts, we got what? 3, 6, 9. Damn, you're fine. Oh, sorry. That's the millennial in me talking. Okay, so 9, 13, 14, 15, 16. So once again, 15 and 16 on these Ruby Sapphire lists. I do think a lot of that has to do with the Sail the Azurite Sea. Once again, like I said, it's not like a Fishbone Quill where you get to just ink a card from your hand. It is like a Bell where you're allowed to perform an additional ink, meaning it must be an inkable card that you do it. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. What do you think about these decks? What decks do you plan on playing? What decks do you think are going to be in my top 5? Like I said, my top 5 will have deck lists attached to it, but I'm going to do my top 10 breakdown, do my brief thoughts on 6 through 10 for set championships. And 3, 2, 1. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. Until next time, like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Take care.